written, and the
Put yours
committee
in,
of the
then we'll
whole.
put that back out.
Attendance, please, Nan.
Mr. Cassianis?
Present.
Ms. Gately?
Present.
And Mr. Nicholson?
Present.
Observing, Ms. Capola? Mr. Ford? Mr. Satterwhite?
Okay, so we are going to hear from the dual language program resources, and are we ready? Hi.
Hello.
Good. We're looking forward to this.
Well, hi. So I have printouts of this is just resources. We just want to give you a quick update on sort of where we are in the process of curriculum and resources in regards to dual language. And then later today, we have a full presentation on dual language in itself and program and all the work that's been done there.
Okay.
So I have copies of, this is just a few slides if people have it, but just brought them just in case. Oh, and we put it up. I'll need this.
Rania,
Yes.
pull the mic.
Right, got it. Okay. So we started this work way back when with dual language, and in September, Dr. Tutwiler gave just a note in his superintendent's report that we were beginning to look at curriculum and resources in regards to dual language. So at this point in the process, we have planned curriculum and assessment selection process for the end of January. And at that time, we'll have staff members, including representatives from Harrington School, which is where our dual language program will be housed, the English Learner Education Department, core content areas in curriculum, special education, and teachers with expertise in native Spanish literacy and developing Spanish literacy. So during that January meeting, Lynn and Salem will come together. We had that joint grant last year where we've been working very collaboratively throughout this whole process. So the two teams of educators will come together and we'll build our capacity around the essential criteria and look-fors in curriculum, resources, and assessments for our dual language adoption, specifically in literacy and in mathematics. And then we will develop criteria during those meetings to review and evaluate them, identify the pros and cons for those first rounds of materials that we'll be looking through, and then determine critical next steps to resolve any gaps that we may find in curriculum and assessments for preparation for our opening in fall of 2020. So the next page just highlights some potential resources we're looking at for mathematics. These are all Spanish resources. We are focusing for kindergarten, so there are a number of resources that we have narrowed down based on their wide use in dual language programs as well as the research. They include Go Math, which is actually currently used in our SEI classrooms in Lynn Public Schools, Eureka, Engage New York, Everyday Math, Imagine Math, and Cognitively Guided Instruction. And then we've noted some online resources that may be used to supplement those major resources in mathematics. And those are listed including iExcel, Khan Academy, Disfruta las Matemáticas, AAA Math, and Imagine Learning Math. And then finally, for literacy, we've identified a few resources, and my Spanish is not good enough for me to read some of these. But Sentiana, Yabisi, La Cartilla, I'm going to skip the next one. You can just say ENIL, spare you my poor accents. And then maybe looking at the online resource of Imagine Learning Espanol. So we, in our work in dual language, which we'll talk at in depth, we wanted to take our time in terms of this process to make sure we had a very deep understanding of dual language, our own program, and what was needed in terms of how we were looking at resources for the program we were developing. So that's basically all I have.
Questions? Jared, Mr. Nicholson.
Thank you, Ms. Gailey.
Attorney.
This sounds great. It's really exciting. It sounds like a wonderful opportunity. So thank you for all your work on this. I think we're eager to hear the update on the process because we think it's such a great idea. I'm just curious. Can you talk a little bit about what you're looking for when you're making this decision about which curriculum to adopt? Like how the dimensions in which you expect them to be different, and what you're looking for to find the right curriculum.
So obviously we're going to work together to develop criteria, but one of the main things that we have learned in this process is to ensure that the curriculum we select values and honors the native language literacy that Spanish brings. So we want to make sure we're not just purchasing translations of English things that don't speak to the heritage and the culture and the native literacy that our Spanish speakers bring, to have that authenticity of that language in that curriculum. So that's really like front and center, and we've gone to a number of professional developments where we've seen many curricula be presented to us in conferences, and some of them do exactly just that. They take English concepts and translate them to Spanish, but it doesn't correlate in actual how the language develops naturally and authentically. So that's the main thing.
And is there any? So I know that we, as a curriculum department, we have standards we get from the state, goals for the district, and also a goal around building over time, so that the elementary school would build into the middle school curriculum and so on and so forth. Is that a consideration as you add this new curriculum, knowing that the students who leave Harrington will then go back onto sort of the LPS track that's been established, that kind of they would integrate with the broader district curriculum?
Well, we know that the curriculum we choose will align themselves to state standards and Common Core, so that will naturally happen because we'll be progressing through similar standards. Mm-hmm. It'll just be a difference of the language that's being used in those standards.
Okay. Great.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I appreciate the follow-up. Very well put together always. Very well prepared. Very appreciate it. I have a question with for critical next steps to resolve any remaining curriculum and assessments gaps. What does that look like? Could you kind of go into a little bit more detail?
So we know that resources don't always provide everything you need to align yourselves to standards. So in the process of selecting resources, we need to identify those gaps that exist within those resources that may not address the standards that we are trying to achieve, and fill them in with maybe online resources or how we monitor how kids are making progress towards standards, to make sure that there are not any gaps and we're not stuck to a book or a resource, but are making sure kids are moving along the continuum of the standards.
Thank you.
Ms. Gailey.
Hi, Ryan. So in curricula, I like to see the ideas of what you're planning for our students to have. So would we get in advance notice some information about, because I am not fluent in Spanish. I can't even speak Spanish. So I would have to really lean heavily on your expertise. And I really like the idea that it's more actual, not just book learning, because students have a really hard time with that transition. You and I both know that, because it's like, oh. But so will we be prepared? Will you bring that forward so that we can have a chance prior to us voting on it, so we can look at it, we can talk to people, how is this going? And does this, the other question I have is, does this align to a test that they have to take for dual citizenship, or dual certification? Sorry. It's been a long day.
So the first question in terms of and I may need some help maybe with Kim on the process, just.
So this is going to follow completely This is going to completely follow the process that we have put in place for curriculum adoption. It will not deviate from that process at all.
Perfect, thank you. And then the second question.
Oh, sorry, in terms of assessments that will prepare them towards, are you talking about, for example, the seal of biliteracy?
Yes,
or
the seal, that's it. Seal of biliteracy.
If students are meeting the standards in the content areas that they'll be taking through the dual language program, that will definitely prepare them to meet the criteria for the seal. Probably more even the seal of biliteracy with distinction, because those kids who are going through a dual language program, and we've shared this research before, typically perform at or beyond their monolingual and EL peers within the program. And we're seeing so many of our students be successful with the seal of biliteracy criteria, and we don't actually support their native language literacy at this point. So it's going to be exciting data to see as students are moving through the program.
Thank you very much.
There's a question.
Attorney Sadwhite.
Dr. Attorney.
Whoever you
So I understand that we got the grant with Salem, and according to the slides, Salem is going to be involved with the assessment. What if there's a disagreement on the content or the material we want to use in our district as opposed to what Salem picks?
Yeah, so we're meeting with Salem together. So we almost picture a big room, and we have like two tables. We have a Lynn Public Schools table, a Salem table, and there are things that are open sort of to discussion for us to hash out. We know ideally it'd be great to have a collaborative partner with Salem Public Schools, and also great for data points to, kind of see how our kids are doing on assessments and curriculum versus theirs.
Because they're already doing this, correct?
No, they're starting the same time that we're starting.
Okay.
So we recognize the benefits of that, but our decisions don't hinge on them being similar.
Okay.
So we know that they could be, but they don't have to be. It'd be nice if they are, and we come to those agreements. But if it doesn't work out because they're really committed to something, there may be differences.
Okay. Thank you.
Attorney Nicholson.
Thanks. Sorry, I just had one more question quickly, just out of curiosity. Are you finding that you're selecting from fewer Massachusetts-aligned curriculums for this because there's less dual language
Yes.
in Massachusetts, and how are you coping with that?
Yeah, so I mean, there are not a lot of resources within Massachusetts, and it's one of those situations where we have vendors who are in Massachusetts a lot, and we meet with, when we've seen their presentations, they may have that English to Spanish translation that doesn't,
Right.
lead to authentic material. But the benefit of Common Core is that there are other states who have dual language and are using resources and have used them for years, decades, in many cases. So we have that research and that lens to take a look at resources as well.
Are there any particular states where you feel like they have robust dual language programs that are like similar to Massachusetts and in the like standards that we have that you're looking at specifically, or is that just kind of general?
Yeah, I mean, for Spanish, for example, there's a Common Core Spanish standards, right? Massachusetts doesn't have early childhood Spanish literacy standards yet. But there is Common Core, so that will be aligned. That's what most states in the country are using, so it'll be aligned with that. And then we'll just work to make sure that, kids are progressing through what we expect them to get to in Massachusetts.
That's great. Very exciting. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Oops.
Second.
All right, see you in a few minutes.
That's to Donna.
Yeah.
Graduated so far. That was good. We did number. That's a good thing.
Very good. totally.
Call Personnel Subcommittee. Roll call, please.
Ms. Capola,
Present.
Ms. Gately,
Present.
Mr. Satterwhite.
Present.
Observing is Mr. Castellanos, Mr. Ford, Mr. Nicholson, and student advisor. I forgot your name.
Okay, on Personnel Subcommittee, we have technology job posting.
Yes, I provided you, as you were aware, last year we had the situation with our system and getting a virus. And as part of that, we had the consulting people coming in here and working. They kind of mentioned that we were pretty much understaffed and recommended some additions to our staffing of technology. So we actually, in the budget, put 2 additional positions that when we approved the budget were in there. One was just a duplication of an existing job, so we didn't need to. We just posted that and filled that. This is actually a job that's an assistant to the network administrator, which I presented you with as a draft format for discussion purposes. What they are mostly doing will be assisting with the network administrator, but the most important part of this person's job is going to be working on the network from more of a desk, not working out in the buildings as much, where right now it seems like we're all hands on deck. People are running around fixing computers and getting servers up and everything else, because we put an investment in on the security through CrowdStrike, which is to monitor threats. So if you kind of look at on the second page, number 11 is really what I see one of the most important functions of this person's job is on a daily basis to be looking as there's traffic coming in and out of our district, and our security systems that we put in place are going to flag things that this person is going to need to be looking at to make sure that we're not getting, a threat or we're trying to get a virus. So the goal is to try to stop any virus as soon as possible, and if we get one, to isolate it. Not what happened the last time when it got in, it sat dormant, and then once it got administrative rights, it went sideways. It went throughout the district in a matter of 2 days. So we need somebody to really be watching this on a regular basis, and I see this person would be the one that would be doing this almost on a daily, pretty much daily, but they can also assist in some other duties, but it will be more of I consider, a desk job. I hate to say it that way, but they'll be working on computers from in front of them and doing things with the internet. As you saw, we work with City Hall because we have the fiber optic loop that's in the city, and we share that with the city as well. So there is some concerted effort that we share resources and working with our financial systems get tracked through City Hall, like Munis and everything else. So there'll be a lot of that type of work. So this was my first pass at it, so I figured I'd bring it here to have a discussion, and if you have any questions or anything that you feel that needs to be changed, we're more than welcome to discuss.
Attorney Satterwhite.
Thank you. So your description of it just being pretty much a desk job, is there a reason why we're calling it an assistant network administrator?
Yeah, because they're going to be doing these other functions as well. And if the assistant person happened to be out, they would kind of fill in for them as well. So I didn't want to just pencil it in and make it so finite that it's one thing they do. So I want to make sure that I cover all the bases, because they're going to assist the person as well, but they're not going to exclusively just be sitting there looking at a computer all day. I think that's going to be the start of the day, and throughout the day they'll be monitoring that, but they can be doing other things that the network administrator can't do everything all at once, so they'll be assisting them. So
the reason why it's before us is because this is not already a position in the district, correct?
It's not in the bargaining unit, so this will have to be bargained, and it's already been sent to them, and that's why there's no salary or anything else. But it would be a level below the administrator and above the PC land tech, so it's kind of between the two positions.
And that's why I want to make sure, because your description of it is very important. So when I hear they're going to be handling things at a computer, at a desk, I don't really see it as an administrator type position, but like you said, he's going to do more work, or she.
The structure is right now we have an administrator, then we have one PC land tech, and then we have technicians. So this person would be the assistant, then they'd be responsible for as well the overseeing the 2 PC land techs that we have, and then below them will be all the techs. So there is a hierarchy that we're kind of building up to make this. So there is some administrative responsibilities of
Is it
overseeing two
detailed in
people.
here?
Excuse me?
Is that part detailed in here?
Well, it would be part of their job as far as when they report. Well, they report to the person, but we can put that in as well as if they're going to oversee those people. I can gladly. This is a first draft, and
Yeah.
that's what we're looking at it as.
Because I do see supervised, but nothing about people. It's just systems, it sounds like.
I can put that in, so to be more clear.
Attorney Nicholson?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. McHugh. I think, and I appreciate you highlighting the number 11 about the cybersecurity. I think that's a huge priority for us, not just because of what happened last year, although that's a factor, but just because of what's happening around the country in the threats that school districts specifically are receiving and the risks they're facing with regard to cybersecurity. And I know it's mentioned under the broader district goal of the technology that we have adopted for the district, and so I'm glad that is tied to that. My question is, because that sits at the heart, I think, of this position, do you think it would be worth considering adding a qualification related to it, saying that we would, even if you made it a preferred qualification, we'd prefer to have somebody who has experience in cybersecurity. I mean, I know they offer. I'm not a cybersecurity expert, so I don't know if there's certifications or degrees or anything that you would look for. But at least having experience, so we can flag the people that are flipping through this kind of posting that this is a cybersecurity job, and if I have cybersecurity experience, they're going to be excited to talk to me.
No, absolutely. I'll put that in at the top, but I'm also going. I think I'm going to move that from number 11 to number 1. And probably put a little more emphasis on that, so it would be like the number 1 part of the job. Because I still think that I need someone to be doing that. We need to protect our system, and to me, that's probably one of the most important things. I consider that we have people looking at it, but I want someone more, in a more dedicated way to be watching that to try to avert those things from happening again.
Ms. Gately?
Kevin, I'm hearing out in the district in different high schools that they have the computer cots and they're empty and the computers aren't there. And I'm just wondering, like hiring a network administrator, assistant administrator to help the administrator, and the people that really need to get hired would be the techs that are out in the schools that need to implement the materials that we have. Are you familiar with it? Like at Classical, there's empty laptop cots.
I thought we talked about.
Oh, there are some carts that we are now still putting more laptops out to schools right now. We have an inventory, we're doing it. We have technicians right now, and my goal is in the next year's budget, is to put more technicians into the budget at that time. And that would be the next piece, because we're the department's understaffed, but I think at this point, that's something we're working on diligently. We have gentlemen imaging and putting them out on a daily basis right now, because we have the testing coming up online in the near future, and we've done some testing on that as well, and things are heading in the right direction. But I think that this is, to me, I consider this an important position at this time, because if we just delay this again, we're going to, I just don't want to see something happen. And we had insurance the last time this happened, so that was, very beneficial that it didn't cost the school department a lot of money. So and I'm not sure if the insurance company got another claim, they'd probably be dropping us after that, if this happened again.
But my biggest concern is that there'd be too many chiefs and not enough Indians out there to get the computers into the schools.
There's only one chief right now.
No, I understand.
So, this would be...
With this job, but what about the people that don't have those laptops in their building right now, so they're able to practice to take that MCAS, because it's really important to have those in and working?
We have enough
I mean,
devices.
I don't mind, I would have both, but I just want to make sure that we have enough Indians implementing the materials that our teachers need to get the curriculum through to them.
We currently have, we've gone through this over the fall. We have enough devices at every school for the testing
They're not in.
purposes. No, they currently do. We're going to be adding more devices, so they'll have more to utilize in the classrooms. But for the testing purposes, we have the adequate amount to test. We actually had them there last year because we were going to be doing the testing online last year, and we had an adequate number of devices last year. And even with the enrollment changes, we've gone back around to ensure that we have enough devices for testing. So we're going to continue to add more, but it's not like that is absolutely needed to meet the testing deadlines that are coming up.
But that makes me a little confused because when teachers call me into their classroom and say, look at my computer cart, and then I'm like, that's beautiful, oh, great. And then they open the doors and there's no computers in it. That bothers me. Like, there should be computers. So I'm confused.
Maybe this will help, if I may.
Yes.
In early October, we convened a meeting to come up with a rich and robust strategic plan to make sure that we're ready for online testing. And really that begins January 6th with the access test for our English learners, which is online. Part of that involved tasking principals with developing a testing schedule so that we would know exactly how many devices we would need in order to accommodate the testing. They turned those in on time. I believe that was in early November. And then the technology department began all hands on deck, get the devices to the schools that need them per their testing schedule. We've done now, I think, two infrastructure trials, which means basically like pedal to the metal, let's see how everything's going district-wide, turn machines on, get everybody on them, see how things are going. And it worked very well. And I happened to be at Classical on the day that we did that, and I spoke with the principal afterward. And there are enough devices. They said they could use a couple of more to make it just a little bit more flexible, but from a need standpoint, they're being met.
Can I clarify something as well? Some of those empty carts, when IT ordered laptops in bulk, we don't have storage anywhere, right? We have no storage facility. So the carts for the computers, the laptops that IT has in their space needed somewhere to go. And so they put the empty carts in our high school. So some of those empty carts are those, and the computers are still in IT getting imaged. And so when they image them and bring them to the building, then they fill those carts, right?
Yep.
So I think the teachers are getting a little confused by that. Yeah, and so, but that is what those empty carts are.
So the computers are here for those cards, they're just getting programmed.
Correct.
So that's what I mean about the techs. If we could have more techs, one or two maybe.
We agree.
But I agree with Mr. Nicholson on number one being the securities, and I understand what you're saying, and I agree with that. So, thank you.
Back on track, technology job posting. Do you want it to, yes, Attorney Satterwhite?
I think that it needs some more work.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know when obviously it's an urgent need, so maybe we can get it on the next.
No, absolutely. If we can put on the next agenda, on the first meeting in January, I'll have this updated and send it back out to you, and we'll bring it back to the subcommittee again.
Is there any other posting that kind of fits this need, though, that's already approved?
No. This is no, there isn't, because it's a new position, and if there was, we would just utilize that. But again, this still has to go in front of the administrative union and be bargained out and priced out from that standpoint. But as always, I want to make sure I bring it here so we're all on the same page before we do that.
Okay.
And I'll bring that back. I'll get it to you for the next meeting.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Good.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
schools district and having discussed their views with the student government representative. Address that in visual. The session will prompt Roll call, please.
Mrs. Castellanos?
Present.
Ms. Capola?
Present.
Mr. Ford?
Present.
Ms. Gately?
Present.
Mr. Nicholson?
Present.
Mr. Satterwhite?
Present.
Mayor McGee absent. And we have a student advisor, Balaji.
And just to let everybody know, the mayor has another event that he is at and is not able to be at the school committee meeting. Could everybody rise for a salute to the flag? Everybody could remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. Minutes to the meetings. First one being policy subcommittee meeting on November 14, 2019. What's the wish of the committee?
Make a motion to accept the policy subcommittee meeting on November 14th, 2019.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed. Also on the 17th, regular meeting on November 14, 2019. What's the,
Make a motion to accept the minutes from the 17th regular meeting on November 14th, 2019.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and now we have appointments and elections. Superintendent?
Thank you. We've got two. The first is I ask for the committee's support in electing Caitlin Ariel as a school nurse.
Motion to accept Caitlin Ariel as a school nurse selection.
Second.
Okay,
Roll call.
roll call, please, with
Mr. Castellanos?
Caitlin Ariel.
Ms. Capola?
Caitlin Ariel.
Mr. Ford?
Caitlin Ariel.
Ms. Gately?
Caitlin Ariel.
Mr. Nicholson?
Caitlin Ariel.
Mr. Satterwhite?
Caitlin Ariel.
Mayor McGee absent.
Congratulations, Caitlin.
Extend my congrats as well. The second, ask for the committee's support in the election of Carly Noonan as a school nurse.
Make a motion to accept the school nurse election for Carly Noonan.
Second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Castellanos?
Carly Noonan.
Ms. Capola?
Carly Noonan.
Mr. Ford?
Carly Noonan.
Ms. Gately?
Carly Noonan.
Mr. Nicholson?
Carly Noonan.
Congratulations,
Satterwhite.
Carly.
Carly Noonan.
Mayor McGee is absent.
Sorry, Attorney Satterwhite. Okay,
That is it. Extend our congrats to Carly Noonan as well.
okay. And presentations, an update on the dual language program. Ms. Caldwell?
Is there another one? Long time?
Hello.
We're getting folders of this.
Oh, wow.
Let's really get most of this.
We also have T-shirts.
No way.
Oh.
There's different. I'm not in the business of selecting sizes for anybody. So there are various sizes within this box. Everyone is welcome to have one at the table.
Nice.
Merry Christmas.
Presents.
Thank you. I know.
Hi.
What size do you? Oh, 2X? No, I don't think I do take. Do you want a 2X?
I don't think we had many to it.
XL.
Do you want a medium?
No, he wants an
What do you
XL.
want?
I don't know how big.
Here, try it. See if it is. You want an XL?
I'll do it. Do you know these two guys?
Okay. What do you want?
Large.
Can we
Large?
put them on?
You want an XL, right?
Yeah, double.
Kevin, do you know their names?
Yeah, so these are all 2X and 3X. I wasn't going to say anything.
He looked up. He looked right at
I
me.
looked right at you, yes.
Right at me. I saw that.
Probably large, right?
Thank you very much, Ron.
I'll be with you.
Large?
I'd put it on right now, but we'll just go like this.
Thank you
How's
for the
that?
shirts.
Thank you.
There we go.
Large. Oh, you
And
good?
Dr.
Okay.
Satterwhite, make sure we give Ms. Lissa do some.
Oh, absolutely.
What's that?
Oh yeah, and Ms. O'Meara.
Last time we got goodies like this, the English basketball team won the state champs.
Thank you, Josh. Okay.
Josh, can you just do that first light, please?
Great.
Very good.
All right, thank you. Okay, so before we get started, first of all, this is Amanda Campbell. She's the assistant director in the English Learner Education Department, so I'm happy to have her join in with me on this presentation. In your folders, you have the presentation, which was sent electronically, but that copy is actually slightly different because it has a side-by-side Spanish translation along with it for you to visually see some of the things we're doing as part of our dual language program. You'll also have a couple preliminary working documents. One includes an FAQ sheet with some common questions that we've encountered as we've done our learning around dual language, and the other is a pamphlet that includes some of those common questions as well as an overview of the program and its benefits linguistically, academically, to the brain, etc. So we wanted to give you those as a preview of sort of some things that we're working on to communicate and
also the double-sided.
oh, yes.
Benefits of the brain, what happens to your brain when you become bilingual, that's from Head Start.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to begin the presentation, and there are a lot of components to dual language that we feel we haven't formally updated you since May, and a lot of work has happened. So bear with me. I've written notes because I want to make sure that we hit all the key points of the work that has been done and the work that is going to happen in preparation for our opening. So, as I said, we wanted to formally update the school committee on the exciting work that has been happening in preparation of our two-way dual language program, Compañeros, opening at Harrington in fall 2020. First of all, big thanks to Lisa Jussom, the principal of Harrington School, who has been a wonderful partner in this learning and in this work in preparation for the Harrington opening. I wanted to draw your attention to the Compañeros logo. And in it has a number of images that represent our new two-way dual language program. Compañeros is the name of our two-way Spanish-English dual language program. And under the name of the program, we represent Harrington School, the site of the program, along with their hornets. The bridge represents how dual language can bridge cultures, community, and language, but also represents the three pillars of dual language education, which we will talk about shortly. The globe represents Lynn Public School students from all over the globe as we prepare them to be bilingual global citizens through our dual language program. I wanted to also give an official thank you to Michael Molnar from the ELE department, Beth Mercaldi, and the seniors in the LVTI Graphic Arts program for working with our department to develop this logo. A specific thank you to Rosie Guevara Alvarado, a senior at LVTI in the Graphic Arts program, who came up with our phrase, Somos bilingües, we are bilingual, of the program logo. I'm also excited to share that Rosie has also met the criteria to earn the seal of biliteracy this year. So we'll see her at the end of the year. And finally, Heidi Suriel, a Harrington mom and LPS employee, worked with the ELE department to help make the logo come alive on our t-shirts. So as part of our learning last year, we as a district have adopted a color-specific visual representation of the two languages of our program, English and Spanish. Spanish is represented in the color red, and English is represented in the color blue. Many districts use this color-specific model to equally represent each language in a dual language program, while also providing a visual support to students and parents alike who may prefer one language or who may want to switch from one language to another and see the connections. You'll see these colors used in this presentation to share information in both languages. Research has shown that a successful dual language program is built on 3 pillars, which are the goals and outcomes of the program. The first pillar is bilingualism and biliteracy, the development of high levels of proficiency in both English and Spanish, as well as the ability to read and write at a high level in both English and Spanish. The second pillar is academic achievement. A primary goal of dual language programs is to graduate students with academic excellence in all subject areas in both languages. And finally, the third pillar is sociocultural competence. Although academic achievement and bilingualism are important, the most important outcome of a dual language program is to provide opportunities to bring students from different backgrounds together, provide opportunities for them to collaborate, work together, and learn from one another, and teach them to understand and value cultures that may be different than their own. This graphic is one that we shared with you in May, but worth repetition. This work comes from the work of Thomas and Collier, 2 well-known researchers in the field of dual language and bilingual programming. They collected data about how English learners perform academically in different types of programs for many years and tracked the progress of those students over the course of their academic career. It's clear to see that students enrolled in dual language programs, both one-way and two-way, are the only English learners to not just meet but exceed the average performance of their monolingual English peers. Although many English learners in other types of programs appear to keep pace in the earlier grades, their long-term achievement shows an ever-increasing gap between their performance and that of their English-speaking peers as they progress through the years. Now that we've anchored in some of the research around dual language programming and its effectiveness, it's important to address some common questions. You have a more extensive list of FAQs in your packet, but we chose a few to distinguish dual language from other program models you may be familiar with. Because there are different types of dual language programs, it's important to first explain what is a two-way dual language program. It's a program where speakers of 2 different languages, in our case, English and Spanish, attend school together and learn both languages so that all the students leave the program being able to speak, read, and write in 2 languages. There are dual language programs all over the United States with a variety of languages, depending on the local population. While both dual language programs and foreign world language programs give students the opportunity to acquire a new language or strengthen a currently spoken language for many of our students, these 2 types of language programs differ in 2 key ways. The first is the length of time. In a dual language program, the majority of students will begin in kindergarten, spending 6 years and at least half of their day in the target language, which leads to higher levels of proficiency in that language. In a world language program, which probably many of us are very familiar with, most students begin in middle school or high school and spend just 45 minutes a day in their class. The second difference is content. World language focuses on acquiring basic social language of the target language and beginning communication skills, whereas students in a dual language program acquire not just the social language, but also academic language and academic content in that target language. This also leads to higher levels of proficiency in dual language programs. In the past, Lynn, along with many other school districts, had a program that's known as Transitional Bilingual Education, or TBE. Lynn's program closed after the state ballot question that eliminated the majority of all bilingual education programs in Massachusetts in 2002. Although both TBE and dual language both technically fall under the bilingual education umbrella, these two programs are, in fact, very different. The first key difference is who the program is designed for. A TBE program is designed only for identified English learners, Spanish speakers working to acquire English. This is what's known as a one-way program. One group of students working to acquire a second language. Dual language is for all kinds of students. English learners, non-English learners, monolingual Spanish speakers, students that speak both English and Spanish at home, or monolingual English speakers. This is a two-way bilingual program. Two groups of students, each acquiring a new language. Another key difference is that the goal of a two-way dual language is additive bilingualism. That means to develop academic language proficiency in a student's second language while maintaining and continuing to develop the student's first language. However, the ultimate goal of a TBE program is subtractive, to develop proficiency in English and eventually stop acquiring language in Spanish. Why the shift? Since the closure of many TBE programs across the state, nearly 2 decades of additional research have shown that students learn language best from interacting with their peers, which means that two groups of students learning language from each other is more effective than one group of students learning a new language in isolation. Research has also shown us that students that maintain and continue to develop their first language while adding a second language are more likely to be successful long term. But more importantly than that, two-way dual language honors all language backgrounds that our students bring and demonstrates Lynn's commitment to valuing multiculturalism and multilingualism. There are dual language non-negotiables for effective program models. All decisions made about the dual language program are anchored in these 7 non-negotiables. The first, shared leadership and collaboration, is required to ensure that dual language is a philosophy that is owned by multiple stakeholders in the decision-making process. With this in mind, we've included district and school-based staff, including special education, curriculum, teachers, parent liaisons, etc., in our planning and decision-making process. This also connects with having a vision that is shared by all stakeholders in order to remain consistent with the program goals. The third, they're in a different order, I'm sorry. Sorry. The third, elevate the status of Spanish, is to ensure that both Spanish and English hold equal value in the program and in the district. This PowerPoint with both languages is an example of that. All presentations, signage in schools, etc., will be in both program languages and are examples of how we will elevate the status of Spanish. During instruction, there will be a strict separation of languages, no translating. Although students may switch between the two languages as they navigate through content, teachers will only use the target language for instruction. And will never translate the materials from one language to the other. Rather, they will use appropriate strategies to support students as needed. This is important because it increases student proficiency in their new language and teaches students to remain engaged throughout the lesson, rather than wait to hear the material in their preferred language. For a successful dual language program, a 6-year commitment is required from both the district and the families. This is based in second language acquisition research, which shows that it takes 5 to 7 years to become fully proficient in a second language. Because elementary school is 6 years long, kindergarten to grade 5, experts recommend that the program span the duration of elementary school to see maximum academic gains, and that parents commit to the program for that amount of time. An asset-based approach focuses on seeing and building on students' assets by focusing what students can do rather than what they can't, and by honoring the linguistic and cultural backgrounds of all students. Finally, equity is the basis of dual language. Research shows that dual language is beneficial for all learners, but particularly for English learners who are historically marginalized in U.S. schools. In December 2018, that seems so long ago, LPS and Salem Public Schools jointly applied for and received a DESE seed grant designed to provide monetary support to districts planning to open a new bilingual education program. We use much of this money to build district-wide foundational knowledge and develop coursework pathways through Boston College. Throughout the spring and summer of 2019, we attended conferences, visited other dual language schools in Massachusetts, and partnered with Alexandra Guillermo of Taju Educational Solutions to begin making programmatic decisions, all of which we will outline for you in just a couple slides. With our partner, Boston College, we developed 4 pathways, from a 1-credit foundational knowledge pathway to a 4-course pathway that includes all courses necessary for staff to earn the bilingual endorsement. We also offer 2 of these courses. 72 staff members completed the Foundations of Dual Language course, and 46 are enrolled in working on a 2nd course, Bilingualism, Second Language, and Literacy Development. I also just want to take a minute to pause here to talk about how wonderful the collaborative work with Salem Public Schools has been, and the partnership that has developed through those conversations of having a nearby district to be able to make a phone call, to use one another's strengths to balance the work that we're doing has been amazing. So I do want to just say that formally. Throughout the fall of 2019, we've continued to make key programmatic decisions, such as staffing models, a PD plan, and a family and community engagement plan. As I mentioned on the previous slide, our coursework through BC, which began in the spring, has continued into the fall. And in order to develop a staffing model that is sustainable, we've applied for DESE's Gateway City Grant for ELE programs, which will provide funding to establish a bilingual hub in the Lynn Public Schools. This funding, if received, would allow us to pay for already identified bilingual teachers to complete their bilingual endorsement coursework through Boston College, as well as opportunities to recruit additional bilingual staff members, including current teachers, paraprofessionals, parent liaisons, etc., to begin their coursework. We've also allocated funding for professional development at the Harrington School and submitted our preliminary proposal to DESE as we look towards our program opening in September 2020.
I just want to also jump in here and say that Boston College has also been a really incredible partner. They have been instrumental in getting coursework to our staff members, and we really couldn't have done a lot of the early planning work without that support.
You can keep the mic. So we'll transition. So Amanda.
All right. Slide one. Hi. So as we began to make programmatic decisions, We needed to start with what our literacy model would be. And with dual language programs, there are really two main types of literacy models. The first is a simultaneous literacy model. And that you see when you have two equally complicated languages that don't have much in common, such as English and Mandarin. With these two languages, they really don't have a lot in common, and so you would teach students to read in English and Mandarin at the same time. There's also sequential biliteracy development, and that you see a lot if you have one really easy to learn language and one much more complicated language to learn. And if they have a lot of overlap, you can teach students to read first in the language that is much more easy to learn to read in, and then see students transition all of that knowledge into the more complicated language. So in our program, which is English and Spanish, Spanish is a very transparent language that's very easy to learn to read in. English, on the other hand, as we all know, is a very complicated language. There are a lot of rules. There's a lot of exceptions to those rules. There's a lot of exceptions to the exceptions of the rules. And so for that reason, and because the two languages have a lot of similarities, they both use the same alphabet, they have similar words, they have the same base, it makes the most sense for students to learn to read in Spanish first. And research about literacy development and other dual language programs, it really shows that students are able to take all of what they learn when they learn to read in Spanish and transfer it over to English, regardless of whether their home language is English or Spanish. So since students will need to learn to read in Spanish first and then learn to read in English, the sequential literacy model, it's necessary that students spend the majority of their time in kindergarten learning to read in Spanish to really build those literacy skills. This means that our program will be known as what's called a 90-10 model. Although all dual language programs eventually arrive at 50-50, programs are named for what type of program they start at in kindergarten. So because we'll spend the bulk of our time in Spanish in kindergarten, we'll be a 90-10 model. So kindergartners in the dual language program will spend 90% of their instructional day, that doesn't include things like specials, lunch, recess, in Spanish, and 10% of their day in English. The amount of time in English will increase a little bit, 10% each year, until 4th grade when they get to 50-50. So as you can see on the slides, they go from 90-10 in kindergarten to 80-20 in 1st grade, 70-30, 60-40, until they reach 50-50. Any questions on that? With that, one additional piece. It's really important to know that research does support that having a solid base of literacy in Spanish and having a solid base of language in Spanish sets all students up for the greatest amount of success, regardless of their home language. So because we'll have the 90-10 model, we have allocated our content by grade level based on that percentage that students will spend in each language. So in kindergarten, students will begin learning all of their content in Spanish. They'll learn math, science, social studies, and literacy in Spanish. Just like we have ELA, we'll have SLA, Spanish Language Arts, in our Spanish classrooms. All students, not just our English learners, will receive what's known as English Language Development, or ELD. This is a chunk of time where students will work to take everything they've learned in Spanish and transfer it over to English. This is really a magical part of the day when they really begin to do that cognitive heavy lift that's so great about dual language. Starting in 1st grade, students will start to learn English Language Arts, ELA, and they will also begin to explore science, social studies, and in thematic units in both languages. The important thing to know about this content allocation is that students will only receive their explicit instruction in math in Spanish. And this is a really unique feature of dual language. It seems counterintuitive, but if you already know math in one language, you know math in another language. You just need the language to transfer over. So for example, I hope we all know how to add and subtract. If we moved to Germany, we would still know how to add and subtract. We would just need the language of German to really build up our knowledge of adding and subtracting. The numbers, the words add and subtract, we would need all of that information so that we could transfer it over. I lost my place.
German.
Thank you, German. My grandmother's German. I got too excited. The same concept applies in the dual language program. What's really important to know is that students will never relearn content in one language that they've already learned in another language. Rather, through that intentional English, that magical ELD time, that teacher will guide them through taking what they've learned in another language and transferring it over, and then vice versa in English. Make sense so far? Super. Now you guys have more questions about that.
Yeah, I do have a question about that.
Normally we wait till the end, but
Seems like you're soliciting. Is that?
We're going to move on to like what our current work is, so it might be a good time if you want it.
Okay, sure.
Um,
Attorney Nicholson.
I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense. I do have. I have worked down in Latin America. When I first started there, I just did all the numbers to begin with, and then you learn how to transition. Does that there are certain words that are associated with mathematics, though? But when you learn concepts, and presumably in sixth grade, until this program grows, they will need to do math in using English words. Is that going to be a hard transition?
So the research generally says no. I don't want to give you a firm answer on that because obviously our students haven't done that yet. But the research generally shows that even if a student went K through 12 learning math only in Spanish, that they'll still do just as well on their standardized assessments, even if the assessment is in English and their instruction has been in Spanish. So that's,
is there data just on K through, because that's K through 12, is there data just on K through 5?
yes, there's similar data as well.
Great, thank you.
Yes. Ms. Gately.
I just wonder about their test taking in like third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, their MCAS test, and it seems like a huge experiment to do with the whole school. So what's the data say? How is this supported? Or is this the experimental model that we're putting into this school?
Well, two things. First, it will just be 2 classrooms within the school. There will still be 2
just
SEI
two.
classrooms.
So it's not the whole school?
It's not the whole
Okay.
school. We want parents to always have a choice about where their kids end up. And the second is that the data usually shows, if you look at the graph that was, I think, the third or fourth slide, you can see that really English learners, that's specific to English learners, but we see that across all subgroups of students, that they tend to meet or exceed the performance of their monolingual English peers. It doesn't always happen initially in third or fourth grade, but usually by the end of elementary school, they've really navigated both languages and all the content areas and got it worked out.
That's good. That sounds good, but thank you.
No other questions? We'll move on.
So some of our current work that we're doing, now that we have all of these programmatic decisions really nailed down, we've been able to take a look at our important next steps, which we're all currently working on. We'll submit our final DESE proposal at the end of this December. We're also working on our family and community information nights. The first one will be on February 5th from 5:30 to 7 at the Harrington School, and we'll continue hosting those throughout the registration window. We're also working on our recruitment of potential teachers, and we'll be holding an information night for all current LPS teachers who are interested in the dual language program on December 19th at 3:15. And we're working on developing a timeline for hiring. As we mentioned in the curriculum subcommittee, we'll begin to meet in January to select resources, and we'll also begin the mapping process. This process began back in September when Dr. Tutwiler notified the school committee that we'd start this plan, and we hope to have it wrapped up before the end of the school year so that teachers can have the materials in hand as soon as possible and so that they can attend professional development throughout the summer. We're also starting to develop an enrollment plan for this initial year, and we anticipate being back before you guys soon to discuss that plan with you.
it's a question.
Yes. Attorney Satterwhite.
Okay. You might not know this, but maybe someone on that side would. For the recruitment of potential teachers, what is the additional benefit that a teacher will have with doing this particular dual program since it's new?
What do you mean by the additional benefit of the?
We don't have anything like this in the district, right? So it's like a beta type thing. It's like a start of something. So would they not have to do certain PDs? What is?
Yeah, and I think in the next slide, there's some information about a 3-year professional development plan. I think the benefit for the teacher who decides to apply and ultimately who's selected to teach in this program is that it's really exciting, right? And to be clear, and not taking anything away from the presenters who've done incredible work on this, it's not new. I mean, we spent time last year visiting, I don't know how many schools you all visited, but I went to a school, we had members of curriculum, deputy superintendents visiting schools that are currently and have been doing this model that got exemptions from that 2002 law in Boston. I think there's in Brockton, there are some schools. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And having never seen it before, to go and visit and see that work happening and to see, to walk into a 4th grade class and see it being, it's a math class, but it's being taught in Spanish and there's no English and you have 10-year-olds walking around speaking Spanish. Some are native Spanish speakers, others are not. It is really incredible. And so I think the benefit for anyone participating in the program is just being part of something that I think is really magical. And to be clear, there's magic happening in every classroom, but this is new for Lynn.
What's the number of students that would be able to get into this program? I said 2 classes.
So 2 classes, so the average size of whatever 2 classrooms are at that level.
What's the average?
25 to 27.
Okay, so between 40 and 50 students?
Yeah.
And just the last question is, I got messaged by a parent recently that the communication that they get home is not always in their language, and they're not aware of a translation availability from the school department. So I know that we're doing family community information nights. Are we sending information out in multiple languages? And if we're sending mainly things out in English, are we putting stuff on there that says, if you need this translated, call this number or come to Bennett Street for help?
Yeah, I mean, all of our communication, all of our communication out of our office always goes out in English and Spanish initially, and then we supplement with the other major languages that we have access to. For compañeros, we already know, as we talked about elevating that Spanish, we already know that communications are going to go out bilingually or have both of those components to make sure that they're always available and present to our families. I also do want to add to the benefit piece for the teachers, because through the work with BC, we've been able to offer those professional development courses for teachers, and they've been able to receive large numbers of professional development points for salary increment in the district for participating in that courursework.
So that is something. So with the PD and, okay, that makes sense. I see,
at no cost.
I see the benefit. Magdalene did the conversational Spanish course. Stuff like that's beneficial to teachers that might want to dive into a position like this. Obviously, it's more than conversational Spanish, but at least it's a start. So those are my questions. Thank you for answering them.
So, well, I have it on as well. Just the last couple of slides, just to talk about our planning timeline. So, future work includes the registration of the incoming kindergarten class, which will begin in March. The summer will be a busy time as we continue to register and also have teams of teachers working to finalize curriculum mapping documents. We will also be offering an array of professional development opportunities for Harrington and district staff involved in dual language. And finally, our key next steps are to finalize our 3-year professional development plan for both district and Harrington staff. We currently have a plan for the rest of the school year. In the first year, the program is open, but also know that we'll need to onboard new teachers in the future and want to make sure that we have a sustainable plan to continue to develop the knowledge of our current staff while also building the foundational knowledge of new staff. We will also be actively marketing this new program. within the Harrington neighborhood, targeting childcare providers in the area to make sure that all families know the options available to them at kindergarten registration this year, and to answer any questions that families may have. Finally, we will be selecting our curricular resources and assessments and developing year-long scope and sequences for Spanish literacy, math, science, and social studies. And that mapping process will be beginning very soon. Thank you.
Attorney Satterwhite.
My question, I guess, is going to go to this side as well. Maybe you guys can answer it. What about evaluations and supervising the teachers? It's going to be in different languages that the principal might not speak or understand.
I can speak to that if you'd like. But you can start.
I'll just go high level, and then you dive into the weeds. I'll just say that as a former principal of a high school, I had to evaluate teachers of world language and languages that I did not know. And so the focus was more on the strategies that are being employed, levels of engagement. There are things that you can observe, even though you might not necessarily be able to understand what's being said, you can observe the strategies in play. And remember that all teachers are evaluated on the same rubric statewide, and so you're really using that as the anchor for your evaluation work.
Yep, and just to add on to that, as part of our PD plan, we will have very formalized professional development on how evaluators who do not speak the target language will be able to view those things in those classrooms. So we will provide adequate training for that process.
Perfect. Thank you.
Attorney Nicholson.
Thank you. Well, first, thank you so much for the presentation and for all the hard work and thoughtful preparation that went into this from you and from all that you work with in the Lynn Public Schools. I think it's a really exciting opportunity, and I'm excited for the students and families at Harrington that will get to participate in this. So thank you for that. A question I had, I think, anytime you do a pilot, you want to focus on the pilot and focus on making sure the pilot is successful. But I imagine when we build the pilot, we're also thinking about what the implications are for the program if it is successful. Do you feel like this pilot has been put together in such a manner that it's scalable, whatever supports and teachers are required, that should it be successful, we would be able to grow it to have a sort of a bigger impact across the district?
So, first of all, I just want to note that we've been through our learning. We're always cautionary of the word pilot because really we're committing to this work. We're committing to the 6 years. That's part of our DESI proposal. And the rationale of us starting this work almost 2 full years in advance is to create sustainable structures to not there are going to be things that come up because it's new. You recognize that as when you develop things, but you also, we recognize we've taken the time to systematically plan systems and structures that will be sustainable, because we don't want to develop a program where we're reacting. So that's why we have participated in so many, beyond workshops, but very, very strategic professional development and work with our consultant to really take the research behind dual language and make sure that we are very systematic about how we're developing our program structure and not reacting to, not being reactive.
So sustainable meaning that we can do it for 6 years in 2 classrooms and have a lot of confidence in those 6 years for 2 classrooms. I think I'm asking about whether it's scalable, whether if you wanted to add a lot more classrooms, whether the model is something that you could easily replicate, or whether it's a huge investment to create another 2 classrooms.
Just based, I mean, so we're learning a lot through this process, and it is a lot of work, and it's not just, I mean, really, and I think Ms. Jusson could speak to this. this isn't just about preparing for 2 classrooms. This is about preparing a school. And a lot of the professional development has involved all of the teachers at Harrington School. And so I will tell you philosophically, I'm deeply invested in this program. I believe in the research behind it and the outcomes. And if the opportunity is there to expand it, then that's something that I'm going to push really hard to do.
Can I just, we're starting obviously with 2 classes in kindergarten. The next year it will be the 2 classes in kindergarten plus 2 classes in first grade, and so on every year. So eventually Harrington School will have 2 standard SEI classrooms like we currently have, and 2 dual language classrooms at every grade level. Once Harrington has scaled to 5th grade, I think along that journey, if the opportunity arises, just like Dr. Tutwiler said, we would be looking to potentially expand to other schools with similar, within our district that would meet the need.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, and that's kind of what I'm asking. I think it makes sense to start the way we've started here and learn as much as we can. And I think it's important to, as we learn, to think about what it takes to replicate. That's part of the learning. Is if there was an opportunity to grow, what would that look like? Because some programs, I think, lend themselves to take. There's a much flatter learning curve once you've already done it once.
Right.
And that's what I was asking about. But thank you.
Mr. Castellanos?
Thank you so much for this presentation. It's actually, I'm so excited to see everything. I honestly, it's something that's very special for me. I wish this program was around when I first came here. I was 3 years old when I came to this country, and I landed into my father's family, who were shocked and really impacted by not having bilingual programming. There was a lot of trauma involved with trying to learn the language of English primarily. So I was kind of sheltered just to speak English. So I lost my Spanish side of speaking. As you're going through this, I just kept on thinking about the social emotional side of it. It's so vital. There's so much culture that ties into this, especially as the inclusivity that we have in the city of Lynn, that I strongly believe is one of the best gifts in this world. I think in the States, I don't see many cities like us. That's why Lynn's very special. I have just a question with BC, and I know they were instrumental to this process. What does it look like for the long term in terms of sustainability? Are they going to stick around? As we talk about this seems like a home run. Like I love it. Like you see how we start off in the elementary. We'll see what it starts now. But what's that partnership looking like? Is that conversation happening?
Yes, we have had that conversation with BC. I mean, BC is BC. We have a PD rate with BC, PDP rate with BC, which we're funding courses for teachers right now, but the P rate is much, much less money than the course rate at BC, which is nice. So we're applying for grants, and we're offering it as long as we can to teachers. But in the meantime, colleges and universities are also having approved programs so that more bilingual educators are coming through the pipeline. And we're creating that partnership with BC, which is because we'll be one of not many districts with bilingual programs. So we will be a pipeline, will be a place for teachers or student teachers in those programs to come and do student teaching and start their careers here.
That's why I identified as you were speaking, and light bulb went off. That's good. And then there's going to be more universities next to them.
Right. Because at this point, only a few universities actually have received the go from the Department of Ed to offer the bilingual endorsement. BC Framing.
BC is one of 5. Bridgewater State, UMass Amherst, Leslie, Boston College, and fourth one's the
Yeah, so there are not many who are currently offering it. So as that develops, but we have developed a great relationship with BC at this point, so it's great.
They've also built out courses to make them more accessible to our educators. So they have taken courses that were previously offered face-to-face and modeled them into hybrid courses specifically for Lynn teachers to be able to make it a little bit more accessible for teachers who are working during the day and can't commute to Boston College at night.
Yep, and they've also been open to doing satellite courses and coming here to do those face-to-face visits. They've been doing it either in Salem or in Lynn to make it more accessible for our staff.
We've also offered virtual office hours with the professor so that you can log on to a Zoom link and touch base with the professor about any of the course concepts. They've been really, really helpful.
Sounds like a remarkable partnership.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yes, Mr. Ford.
Just a quick clarification. We don't intend to wait the full 6 years till Harrington. If this looks good after 2 years, we'll start bringing other schools on board, correct?
Correct.
Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank
Really
you.
nice job.
Yeah, exactly.
He disappeared.
Yeah, just take the right clicker
I don't know if
thing
you want
out.
me to say something about what he's doing.
Okay.
Lynn Tech, he's
Exactly, that's the exact.
he's making open next year.
Because it takes some planning, yeah,
So
exactly.
he's doing that with a group of Lynn Tech kids.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We lost a couple. I can do it. I can do it now.
Okay, Superintendent Tatwala
Yeah.
wants to address something.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, I don't know if anybody saw the gentleman stepping in the doorway there with the camera. That's a Lynn Public Schools teacher, Mr. Rateau. He's a teacher at Lynn Tech, and also a regional Emmy Award-winning cinematographer, I think would be the appropriate title. And on opening day at the beginning of this year, we showed a video capturing pictures and footage of all the wonderful things that happened in the Lynn Public Schools last year. Mr. Rateau and a group of Lynn Tech students are working this year to create one for next year. So that's what he's doing here. There he is right there.
Very good, thank you. Next presentation is update on the attendance initiatives by Kimberly Powers, our Deputy Superintendent.
Thank you. Okay, presentation themes for this evening are how our district core values connect and align to the attendance initiative. We will be revisiting the vision of every student every day. There will be an update on current attendance and chronic absenteeism accountability data. And finally, I will share progress to date with wellness teams and with building our SEL framework at the elementary and the secondary levels. Thanks, Steph. What is the relevance of our district core values to every student every day? Inclusiveness. This is an initiative inclusive of students, families, and community. Shared responsibility. Shared responsibility with multiple stakeholders of the school community, both in wellness teams and with the overall attendance initiative. Collaborative relationships. There is an emphasis on collaborating with multiple community partners. High expectations. There is both a commitment to data-driven decision-making and a focus on prevention within this model. Lifelong learning. The goal is to inspire this through building a framework that is focused on meeting the academic as well as the social and emotional needs of each and every student. Vision for the LPS attendance initiative. School-based wellness teams in every school with district-wide protocols, procedures, and systems of support. Wellness teams that are one part of a larger district initiative, every student, every day. All schools focused on building climate and cultures that are safe and supportive. collaboration with multiple stakeholders, including students, teachers, families, and community. The overall goal is the academic success and the emotional well-being of our students. Before reviewing the spring 2018-19 attendance and chronic absenteeism accountability data, the next two slides are just a quick reminder on the differences between the terms of attendance and chronic absenteeism. I think we all can remember that attendance refers to how many days a student is present, and we must remember that in terms of state accountability, that includes both excused and unexcused absences. Attendance percentages are calculated by the number of days present divided by 180, or the number of days present divided by membership enrollment, how long a student has been in the district. Now, chronically absent refers to a student who has 90% or less attendance. Chronically absent percentage is calculated by 10% of 180 days, which is 18, or 10% of enrollment membership. What I want to emphasize here is that school attendance is not a measured accountability indicator. Chronic absenteeism is. The next slide focuses on chronic absenteeism comparisons by school, comparing school year 17-18 to school year 18-19. Observations or data points of interest. 8 schools exceeded their chronic absenteeism target in spring of 2019. Callahan, Cobbett, Lincoln Thompson, Lynn Woods, Sewell, Shoemaker, Sisson, and Classical. 2 schools met their chronic absenteeism targets in spring of 2019, Connery and Breed. 5 schools improved but didn't meet their chronic absenteeism target. That was Druitt's, Harrington, Tracy, Lynn English, and LVTI. 8 schools declined from the spring of 2018. That would be Aborn, Brickett, Fallon, Ford, Ingalls, Washington, Marshall, and Pickering. 1 of our schools did not have enough participants to receive an accountability report, and that would be Fecht O'Leary. Our next slide depicts chronic absenteeism comparisons by grade span from school year 17-18 to school year 19. In terms of accountability, this is how the district, the overall district, is measured by grade span, high school and non-high school chronic absenteeism. Observations or data points of interest here. The high school group not only lowered their chronic absenteeism average from 35.8 to 33.0, they also easily exceeded their target of 34.2. What I want to do within this group is give a huge shout out to Lynn Classical, who reduced their chronic absenteeism rate from 37.7 to 31.8. The most growth in the largest decline in chronic absenteeism in the district. They did an awesome job. They reduced it by 5.9 percentage points. The non-high school group did not meet their target of 10.7, but collectively, they did lower their chronic absenteeism percentage from 11.7 to 11.5. This chart also clearly highlights for you the dramatic differences in our chronic absenteeism rates from non-high school to high school, where you have at non-high school, your chronic absenteeism rate is 11.5, and at the high school, it is at 33. I mean, the high schools have a much bigger task ahead of them in terms of chronic absenteeism. Our next slide has a focus on attendance. LPS attendance comparisons from school year 17-18 to school year 18-19. 16 of our 25 schools had better attendance than in school year 17-18. 3 schools had exactly the same attendance as the previous year. All of our high schools had better attendance rates. Of the schools that declined, none went down more than 0.3 of a percentage point. And for the district, the overall district attendance rate percentage increased. Again, an overall theme is that both attendance and chronic absenteeism data are trending in the right direction. Attendance is rising and chronic absenteeism is declining. We continue to build the structures to support every student coming to school every day. I want to remind you that this initiative is still very much in its infancy. And I want to use an analogy. I think the analogy might have come from Mr. McHugh. We truly are building a plane as we are flying it. We're putting in structures, but we're implementing at the same time.
So scary.
Progress to date, I wanted to give you an update on our wellness teams and the structures and protocols within every wellness team. Wellness team meetings are scheduled in every single school monthly. That continues to be the case. Data from meetings continues to be received by school personnel in advance of the meeting. Attendance letters to invite families in to discuss concerns are still very much a part of the process. At the elementary level, there is still the same protocol of 3 letters. Letters continue to be differentiated and to become more urgent in their messaging. We have had a change at the secondary level. At the middle and high school levels, 1 letter has now been developed and is responsive to the new attendance policy. The goal is to have the letter automatically generated in eSchool at absence 3 and 7 in each quarter. Within the structures, the overall structures of the wellness team, we've also had some struggles that I want to highlight for you. Some of the wellness team structures and processes have changed and evolved since the initiative's inception. Procedures initially set up, especially those related to data collection and the sending of letters to families, have been extremely labor intensive, especially at the secondary level when you think about the numbers of students and families we're trying to reach out to. For both data collection and letter generation, the work has been done historically outside of our student database and management system, and this is problematic. Our goal and our struggle has been to use eSchool in automatically generating letters and assisting in data collection and reporting. We have struggled mightily in this automation. The attendance team has been working with the data center to create a system that will automatize the sending of letters and also record this event into the system. Prior to this, it was about going in and generating these letters individually. And just think about the numbers you're reading about at the high school level. We have not been able to automatize this system and how labor intensive. And I mean, we've put huge chores, brand new chores, on lots of people. Most recently, we have made progress in achieving our goal to use eSchool as a tool assisting wellness teams. To date, it has not been a viable tool. Beginning in January, wellness attendance letters at the secondary level will be automatically generated at absence 3 and 7 in each and every quarter, generated daily based on a report run in eSchool. These letters will be sent as a single PDF to guidance counselors so that they can just print that PDF out, and those letters can go out every day when a student reaches absence 3 and 7 in that quarter. The letters will be translated automatically, which has not been the case, into the student's designated home language. The attendance letter has now been translated into 5 languages. The letters also are now formatted and this has been a cumbersome process, to allow for tri-folding and will have the student's address automatically printed on the back of it. Documentation of these letters will be noted in the student's communication history within eSchool. And also, we're adding a new feature. All secondary principals will soon create a Blackboard connected message that will be sent to a family automatically when a student reaches 8 absences in a quarter on top of all the letters. And that's not, I mean, parents receive, if your student is absent today, you are notified. But this is a separate above and beyond notification that will say, we are very concerned your student has reached X number of absences.
Oh, I'm sorry. Attorney said what?
Just a question. I believe that when we were talking about this a couple years ago, one of the things that I brought up was the data collection, and for a particular reason, to make sure that we're not pushing kids into the system because, 51As, CRAs, all that stuff. We were brought a dilemma at one point where the superintendent, former one, had brought us 2 supervisors of attendance. And I remember that the reason was because there was a lot of work, and with this new initiative, it was we needed the 2 to take on the task. So aside from the technology crisis, I know that you detailed quite a bit of the issues with the data collections. What we have no data that we can go back on, because we need to be a data-driven district.
I agree with you.
And what we're being told now is, hey, we don't have any from the past couple of years, but we're going to do these things differently. Again, we were presented 2 supervisors of attendance that were going to come at it at a different approach, and we had the work. So we should have some data or something from that.
Their role is not in this piece of data collection that I'm talking about.
So I know we have a data center, but they're in the wellness teams. They have their role is attendance.
Mm-hmm.
So
when you say we have no data, what do you mean?
She says struggles with data collections, which includes, and she listed it. It's not on here. She was just
I
telling
wrote
us.
a separate letter to kind of outline.
And then she's talking about
It's not there.
corrections, which we don't have in this, but she's reading it out loud. So it's from what I'm hearing. If I'm hearing it wrong,
And I don't want to speak for Deputy Superintendent Powers, but I think what she's trying to underscore is the challenge that the student management system that we have, eSchool, in essentially doing what we need it to do relative to capturing data. So we started with, separate and apart, we started with Excel spreadsheets, but that is massively burdensome for individuals because we're talking, hundreds of students and lots of data entry. It's just not sustainable.
26 schools, I know.
Right, yeah, it's a lot.
You have to
And
share
so-
the Excel.
We tried to import that data tracking system into eSchool, and initially we were unable to do it. The system has not been user-friendly to how we have wanted to use it. And that's what I tried to outline that for you.
So do we have any data on the CRAs or the 51As or any of that? I know that we have to file things, so we should have some paper trail of it.
We would have a paper trail. I would not have an electronic trail.
So we don't know if this increased the numbers.
Of CRAs, no.
Okay.
No. I think our improvement data is in the slides where we saw the improvement in both our, chronic absenteeism going down, attendance rising. But in terms of internal data pieces, no, we have, as I said, we have struggled mightily around that piece. But that doesn't connect necessarily to the supervisors of attendance and them carrying out their roles and responsibilities.
Mr. Castellanos?
Because I understand the school-based wellness teams. I understand what's being done. Like what must be frustrating for you guys is that a lot of the work's not being captured, and that's must be really frustrating, especially when we come to 2 years now. I can't even believe when he said it a couple of years ago. I'm like looking at him like he's crazy.
Well, it was last
That's
year.
a long
and
time.
I mean,
Started
if you
last
think-
year.
Yeah.
It started last year, and if you think about, we're building structures and protocols that never existed, you know. And when I reported out to you last year about schools meeting their chronic absenteeism targets, I reported to you on 4 schools that did that. And look, you know, and the picture that was painted today was very, very different. So I do believe we have data. We don't have all the data we want. I agree with you. We don't. But I think we do have data in terms of making progress.
I would like to see, obviously, more schools, and if they had the data that could possibly be beneficial, that's
We
that's
have
what
an
I'm-
internal struggle with our student management system, and we know that.
Are we still doing? I know we had presentations before. Just we had a very comprehensive presentation. I love the presentation. Are we still? Are we still putting that out there for families and engaging? Are we still showing that? 'Cause I think that's so just to keep the consistency there, because this is a very important initiative. Because there's a lot of kids that are trapped by poverty. I think poverty is something that really hooks a lot of these kids who struggle with the chronic absenteeism. There's a lot of underlying roots to why kids are faced with these circumstances with their families, and there's so many different. You guys are up against a juggernaut. Like, it's not just a one. I hear you. You're saying you're in the air, putting together different pieces while you're flying. Like, I hear that. I'm on the ground with. I work as a social worker with your wellness teams. I have kids in my custody that I'm joining these meetings with teachers, with program specialists. We're trying to figure out a solution to something that's so complex, that's out of our hand. Like, it's so difficult, and I respect the work that's being done. And I just keep am mindful for the filling of that position. I hope that we were able to really get that filled as soon as possible, because that's vital. That's a vital arm of this initiative. And I know you guys are working really hard on that, so I appreciate that.
Okay.
So that was progress to date in terms of the wellness teams. Now, progress to date in terms of pieces of what has happened at the elementary level in building not only the attendance initiative, but the SEL framework, establish wellness teams in every school, adoption of an SEL curriculum, caring school community, SEL toolkits in every classroom at the elementary level, K to 5, expansion of PBIS, which is Positive Behavioral Intervention Systems, to 8 elementary schools, Brickett, Callahan, Druitt's, Fallon, Harrington, Hood, Ingalls, and Washington. Our goal eventually is to become a PBIS district. 6 of the listed schools are participating in a PBIS academy sponsored by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. That's a 3-year commitment to those academies. One of our PBIS schools is also participating in a 3-year mental health academy, that is Ingalls. We also have continued expansion of UDL, or Universal Design for Learning. This is a learning framework that looks to design learning experiences that meet the needs of all learners. There is a heavy focus on engagement and looking to remove barriers that impede learning. UDL provides students with multiple supports that give varying levels of provides varying levels of challenge. It allows students choice in how they express their learning, and provides students with multiple technology resources. UDL, we do academies every single summer and bring on schools. The building of an SEL framework with tiered levels of support will continue at the elementary level. Progress to date at the secondary levels. Again, we have established wellness teams in every secondary school. We have a new attendance policy at the secondary level. Middle and high school teams have been established to explore an SEL framework. This work is scheduled to begin in January. This will be one large inclusive team that will look at bringing in resources, SEL resources in multiple content areas from grade 6 all the way up to grade 12. full-time social workers are now present in every secondary school. Just as we did at the elementary, we have expansion of PBIS now to include 4 secondary schools. Fecht O'Leary, Lynn English, Marshall, and Pickering are currently engaged. 2 of the above-listed schools, English and Pickering, are participating in the PBIS Academy. At the secondary level, we also have the expansion of Universal Design for Learning. The service that I spoke to you about last year, Youth Harbors, is just now getting into place to service homeless youth. Youth Harbors offers a continuum of services to unaccompanied homeless high school students to ensure their graduation, housing stability, and successful transition into adulthood. Essentially, program has been put into place to service our most at-risk and disenfranchised youth. We've presented here before on the BRIGHT program, Bridging Resilient Youth in Transition, at Lynn Classical to service students reentering from hospitalization. And we also now have a committee established to design the Student Ambassador Program at the secondary level with a plan to fully roll this out in next school year. You know, and clearly the overall objective of the attendance initiative and the building of the SEL framework is to support the academic success of all of our students.
Question?
Attorney Nicholson?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you to the district and everyone that's involved in working on implementing this initiative. I think it's a great program. We've heard a lot about it. I think you've heard a lot of buy-in from all over the district about how important this is, and so I think it's the right priority. I think it's a great priority. So thank you. Thank you for the update. I think my question is around the understanding how to put the progress in context as to how we feel about it. Mm-hmm. Looking at the chronic absenteeism percentage comparison slide, the blue slide, looking at that from a high level, it looks like things are going the way we want them to at the high school level, and not quite at the 1 through 8 level. I think what I'd be curious is, do we think the DESE assigned chronic absenteeism target is the correct target for us to be shooting for? Is that what we're picking? Do we have an idea of, because other districts are working on this and thinking about this, do we have an idea of other districts that have made big gains in their attendance rate and what we would consider to be a significant gain? Because, I mean, for the non-high school grades, we did move in the right direction. But, you know, as you mentioned in the next slide, some schools declined. None went down by more than 0.3 percentage points. 0.3 percentage points, maybe not a lot. We only improved by 0.2 percentage points for the 1 through 8.
Right.
So probably not the extent of the gains that we would hope to see. So I guess what I'm asking, how can we put this in context in terms of our goals?
Yeah, just quickly. Particularly at the elementary level, it is exceptionally hard to move the needle as it relates to that criterion because attendance is already really, really high. Yeah, and so, like, if you look at A-born, and then, you know, I'm going to be careful about not, you know, moving between average daily attendance and chronic absenteeism, but the average daily attendance at A-born school was 96% last year. It's going to be, that's almost 100%. You know what I mean? That means almost every kid is there every day. So it's going to be really, really hard to push that up. You know, it's already exceptional. That's exceptional attendance. And so it's hard. The problem is going from exceptional to what's above exceptional. I don't know. Perfect. Yeah. You know, that's going to be the challenge for us at our elementary level. And in as much as I, you know, feel compelled to celebrate what's been done at the high school level, improved attendance at all of those schools. We've got a lot to be at 30 some odd percent chronically absent. That's a lot of children missing 18 plus days. So we've got a lot of work to do there, and I think, frankly, that's probably the place where you're going to see more substantive change as we continue to, implement all of the things that Deputy Superintendent Powers just talked about. At the elementary level, we're equally invested in implementing programs and sharpening our Every Student Every Day initiative, but it's going to be harder to move the needle there because attendance is already really good.
Okay.
And when I think about the elementary schools, prior to this initiative, there really was a focus by elementary principals on attendance. Some of the structures and the protocols that we've put at the secondary level are really dramatically new. And the focus is, it didn't have this kind of focus there. Mm-hmm. And we've reaped the benefits of it, clearly, at the secondary level.
Right.
Attorney Satterwhite?
Thank you. And I'll obviously there's good data in here. It's just not all of it. I appreciate the presentation and what you've done with this, because it's very important to make sure that every kid is in school, getting the education that they need. That's our job, is to educate them. And if they're not in school, then we're not doing it. We just got new funding. I'm hopeful that would help improve the resources that you've mentioned for both elementary and middle and high. I know you mentioned that we have a full-time social worker present in every secondary school, but I think that Dr. Tutwiler will agree it's not enough.
Mm-hmm. We don't have one present in every elementary, though.
Correct. So there are things that I can see that could bring additional progress to these areas. One of the things that I had a question about was if a student is punished and is not able to go to school, is that an unexcused or excused absence?
So that change happened. It's unlawful to count that as an unexcused absence because you're disallowing them from coming to school.
Okay.
And so in the attendance policy that the school committee adopted,
Which I thought was for all grades, but it's only for high school?
It is for all grades.
Okay, that's
you
what I
don't.
saw.
It's just not felt at the elementary level. That issue was fixed. So if a student is suspended, it is an excused absence.
So I'm just trying to. It's hard to pinpoint why kids aren't coming to school. There's obviously many. We get all the complaints on the school committee. When a parent is having a dispute with an IEP and they say, I'm not sending my kid to school until they get their stuff together and all that stuff, that counts against us. So obviously it's in our best interest to help and try to resolve those issues as quick as possible. But I know that that's not many, but it's still some. So obviously I understand that disagreement with the education is probably a small part, but it's still a part.
Right.
So that's what flows through my mind when I hear in elementary, we're at 96%. Well, it could be because of these little disagreements.
Could be. And philosophically, I mean, the tagline is every student, every day. And philosophically, we want every student in school every day. And in situations like the one you just described, certainly that's not the case. From an accountability standpoint, it's unlikely that it would be impactful because they'd have to be absent 18 days. Just pointing that out.
Ms. Gately?
I concur with Dr. Tutwiler. Looking over these numbers, seeing 96 for Avon, 94.3 attendance rate comparisons. When I'm looking at in the high 90s or mid 90s, and I'm thinking as a teacher, what happens to students? They get the flu, they get sick. During the winter, they can't be in school. Some tragedy could have happened in their family and they were not able to come to school. So we have to be compassionate when we're looking at every student every day, as well as understanding that these numbers are significant. These numbers are impressive to me. I would love to see 100%, but in reality, I don't think we're going to see 100% because we're never going to get rid of the flu.
Right.
And we're never going to get rid of illness. And we're never going to get rid of family tragedies. But what we are doing that's in the positive is that we're letting students know it is important for you to be here every day. We do want you in here every day. And we are going to continue to remind your parents that it's important for you to get into this school so you can get the education you deserve. And I give you kudos. I think these numbers are phenomenal, with the exception maybe of Fecto Larry, where there are some problems there that you're working on. But I'm blown away because I remember when it was in the 80s,
Sure.
and I remember when it was like 79 or something like that, and a lot of these schools and the students were just not showing up, and you couldn't do anything to help them. But now we're giving them a support or a safety net, and thank you. I appreciate it.
Attorney Nicholson.
I can defer to John.
Okay. Mr. Ford.
Just a question on the, someone mentioned comparing the statistics to other communities. Would be limited demographically and only using the 10 urban districts, right, to compare our numbers to? Would that have, for example, to compare our numbers to Swampscott? It's not even, so we'd be kind of limited to just the 10 urban districts, communities that have the same problems that we do, correct? Thank you.
Attorney Nicholson.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I was the one that mentioned the districts, and that's what I meant, is for pure districts. So just going back to the crowd absenteeism percentage comparisons, based on what the answer about the elementary school versus the high school data, it sounded to me like what I was hearing was that the DESE assigned chronic absenteeism target is not where we want to stop, right? Like that's not that's still 34% is still too high.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
So and that makes sense. So the question is, what is the goal? What is the SMART goal that we're looking for? How will we know when we have achieved what we want to achieve on this metric?
So I've said it a number of times, and it applies to this as well. Sustainable change is a process, not an event. So I think our goal right now, I know our goal is to meet the target, right? And that's how it's described in our, underneath our student learning goal, increase achievement for all students. And then there's 3 indicators, and one of them is meet the chronic absenteeism targets. Because incrementally, so if we meet our target, let's say it's 34 for this school year. The following year, it's going to be a little bit lower, right? The year after that, it's going to be.
They're going to keep on.
It's going to. Their expectation exactly is that it's going to continuously be going down, and so incrementally, and I think that's appropriate. So we're going to stick with trying to meet the targets.
So the state picks a new target every year, and we don't know what it is beforehand.
No.
Is there any value in us making our own planning decisions about what we think is a reasonable pace of? Because I agree with you that for change to be sustainable, it's going to be measured. But without a roadmap of where that is, if we're waiting every year to find out what the direction is going to be for the next year, is there any value to us setting our own direction?
There could be, and I think it was last year we were having some conversation about what sort of math is applied to the development or the identification of those targets, and it's described over 11 pages of some DESE manual. I'd put Mr. Mower up against any statistician, and maybe there might be some value in him applying his mathematical.
We know they're going to take this year's results and last year's results and kind of average them somehow and just improve by a couple percentage points. So we're at 34 or something. We know it's going to be 32 next year. Usually in January we get those targets.
Right. And we also know that it's not going to be a precipitous change. It's going to be something that is appropriate. I think that makes sense. And honestly, I'm really supportive of what's happening here. And I think
this is all great news. It just, on this particular point, it feels a little reactive to me for us to wait until the state has given us a number that we really don't know exactly how they're calculated.
I don't know that any of us are waiting to hear from the state what our target is. Like,
So what
I
is
think
the target
classical.
then?
I think classical is a good example of not waiting. Right?
Yeah.
They made significant change in their attendance, and I've been in the building a number of times and watched the classical staff in the morning greeting kids who are coming in late, and they have in their hands lists of kids who come in late regularly or are absent, and they know them, they call them over, they talk to them, they try and coach them on how to improve it, and they try to motivate them, and they're putting a lot of effort into trying to help kids understand the importance of coming. We want you here, we want you to be successful. I think every school wants to decrease their chronic absenteeism. No one's waiting for, what is the state looking for us to do?
No, and I think the
But just to be clear, I don't mean we're waiting to act. I mean we're waiting for the number from the state, which
Well, we don't.
we're not waiting for the number?
Well, I guess, I don't know. We are acting, and I know you're acknowledging that. And I think with most of the things that we set around accountability, the goal is generally to meet the targets. And I think there's generally rigor in that.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Yes,
quickly,
Superintendent.
meeting the target, I think, is reflective of incremental change in the right direction. The effort that Deputy Superintendent Ruggiero just described is really reflective of philosophy that we want zero, chronically absent. Like the effort is robust, and it starts before the school year starts. I think the targets and meeting them is just a reflection of, or just can be used as like, this is how we're doing year after year, but the effort is really to address to a point of zeroing out chronically absent students.
Yeah, and look, I totally appreciate all that effort, and honestly, I'm certainly not meaning to imply that we were waiting to act. That's not absolutely not what I mean at all. And if I'm just trying to understand what the implication is of the role that the state is playing in setting these numbers. Sure. It's not a question at all about the work that's happening.
Understood.
Attorney Satterwhite.
I think it can go either way with regards to what my brother is saying. So it sounds like Deb and Kim, I'm sorry, Ms. Power and Ruggiero, teachers aren't saying, oh, we can have 2 chronic absenteeism, so we're not going to worry about these 2 students. They're saying, we're going to worry about these 2 students and everyone else to make sure that it zeroes out. So the mentality isn't, okay, the district created a standard, and I can have 5 chronic absenteeism students this measured period. So I'm not going to worry about those 5 students. It's, hey, I don't care who you are. I don't care what the measurement is. We want 100%, and we're going to try for that 100% each and every day. Is that pretty much okay?
Absolutely.
Just because I feel like we were everywhere with regards to the response, and I think that clarifies it in the most simplest fashion.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, is that the end of questioning? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, nothing under unfinished business. Under new business, request to accept a donation from Mr. and Mrs. Rory Callan in the amount of $1,000 to Ingalls Elementary School for supplies to build gingerbread houses for the kindergarten students.
Recommendation?
Kindly support that generous donation.
Second.
Make a motion to accept the donation from Mr. and Mrs. Rory Callan. Sorry, in the amount of $1,000 to Ingalls Elementary School for supplies to build a gingerbread house? To build gingerbread houses for the kindergarten students.
Second.
Second? Yep. Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Castellanos?
Yes.
Ms. Capola?
Yes.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Ms. Gately?
Yes.
Mr. Nicholson?
Yes.
Mr. Satterwhite?
Yes.
And McGee absent.
Request to accept a donation from Market Basket for $750 in gift cards to the Ingalls Elementary School.
Motion to accept.
Wait, I think
I'd like to ask the school committee to accept this, again, generous offer from Market Basket for Ingalls School.
Okay, if somebody can make a motion in a second, and I'll allow discussion. Or,
make a
okay, discussion. Mr. Castellano?
I was just gonna ask, Engels PTO, they're just getting after it. That's like they're getting. I love Engels for that. That's awesome. Gingerbread houses. They got a $750 gift card from Market Basket. Okay, good job, Engels.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Cassianos?
Yes.
Ms. Capola?
Yes.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Ms. Gately?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson, Nickus?
No.
Jordy Nelson.
And Mr. Satterwhite?
Did you respond?
Yeah,
Oh.
yes.
Yes.
Repeat after yes, please.
And Mayor McGee is absent.
Okay. Next one on it is Gordon College. It's something that I had asked to put on. It's been a while since we had that vote, and we have probably all been approached by many people, whether they teachers, principals, students at Gordon themselves, in many communities. And I just think that in a 5-year span that maybe we should try to see where we stand with it. And I would like to refer to the superintendent, not any vote tonight or anything like that, but refer to the superintendent and ask him to review or look at the issues in particular between the Lynn Public Schools and the Gordon, maybe research it, study it, see how other communities have dealt with this. I know that there are no other communities that have this policy and have shut out Gordon. And I just would, it's one thing that's just to look at it. And, there's no hurry on it, just to take some time and try to satisfy many that have been concerned about the loss of the partnership. And that's from, staffing down to college students and not necessarily our students, because they didn't know what the partnership was like for many of them.
I just want to make a quick comment about the student that came up today for open mic. Felix, I think that takes a lot of courage to come up and to share your view, and it takes tremendous courage. And to make a stand for students who struggle in silence is something that's vital to a lot of us at the table. I think a lot of us are hearing that. We appreciate the folks coming out and having this conversation, because I think that's what it's all about. Being receptive of what's going on in today's society, and to make sure that we get the message right and that we abide by a collective approach to really do our homework and our research, to really go into deep dive, to not just ignore and just pass something along. So I just want to say, Felix, you did a wonderful job, and you really are a special speaker for that, and I commend you.
Attorney Satterwhite.
I just, I'm going to piggyback off of Brian, and I think that all the people that came and spoke, you had a backstory to why you were here. You saw something and you said something because you thought it wasn't right, and that's important. I think that our students should understand that if you see something wrong, say something, and you have a voice, and your voice matters. Obviously, there was research done, and someone saw a previous vote from years ago, before the majority of this committee, and said, "Hey, that's not right." I think that the teacher, I don't remember his name, Ken. He came prepared with information. I think that as a Christian school, obviously they've referenced the scripture and they have a right to do so. I think that the issue that I'm having most trouble with is whether or not what was done 4 or 5 years ago was lawful, because I am now, I guess, in disagreement with or not fully apprised to the information that was presented to us earlier by Attorney Myhouse. So I think that is a big issue that needs to be looked into, because I don't want people to have a false thought of protection because we voted on something. Obviously, state law, if Mr. Myhouse can speak about that, preempts what we can do as a school committee, correct?
My opinion that I gave was my interpretation of that section of the Mass General laws. Doesn't necessarily mean that it negates the policy which the school committee adopted 5 years ago. So that's not what I meant to convey. I'm just saying that specifically, according to the information I received today through Dr. Tutwiler, that there are no, the policy that was adopted by the school committee is being honored by the present administration. So there is no real contact, other than the fact that Gordon College is allowed to present information as all other colleges who wish to come to Lynn English. And first, to forestall the ability of Gordon College to enter the school, I have a problem with that, right? The policy itself that was adopted 5 years ago, it's within the discretion of the school committee.
Because it doesn't reference whether they're coming in and out of the building. It's partnerships, I believe. Is that correct?
That's correct. I just want to get the language. The vote was to sever ties with Gordon College to come before the committee, right?
Any and all.
Any and all. I don't know whether you can define the allowance of that school to come in at lunchtime at their request, not at the request of English High School, at their request, and try to solicit students with whatever package they're giving out. I don't know if the school committee has the ability to prevent that from occurring. But the policy that they had adopted 5 years ago, that's within your discretion.
Attorney Nicholson.
Thank you. I also want to echo my colleagues in thanking for the testimony from Felix. I think this is an example of an issue where one of our core values is being tested. Our core value of inclusiveness is being tested. And I think we need to be really careful about it. I think no one is, and I think Felix himself mentioned that no one is questioning the ability of Gordon College to have the beliefs that they have on their campus. No one's questioning that, and that's a First Amendment right that they have. I think what we're wondering how that intersects with our values as a district, what our how we're governing ourselves as a district in the Lynn Public Schools. And I think, the public schools are public buildings. They're subject to the state laws prohibiting discrimination in places of public accommodation. And it sounds like, at least 5 years ago, Gordon had the position that they intended to discriminate in hiring. That was the how this was launched. And they have a policy that has effects about the kind of students that they would recruit and allow to attend. And so I think there's a question of how to reconcile their First Amendment rights with that threat of discrimination. And there may be a legal answer to that. We'll have to do more research, and I think it's could be a difficult question. I think there are places around the country that are struggling with this question about how to reconcile First Amendment rights with goals of anti-discrimination. Whatever happens with that result legally, I think it's really important for the Lynn Public Schools to send the message of inclusivity, particularly to Felix and the LGBT community, that which can be in the schools of a vulnerable population. We all know that statistics about the disproportionate rates of suicide, of mental health issues. And so as we negotiate through the sort of legal balancing, I think it's really important for us to stand with the LGBT youth community to let them know that we really support them. I know that Felix is here. Other organizations have reached out and looked at this. The North Shore Alliance of Gay and Lesbian Youth, other people that are in touch with LGBT youth that are understandably have issues with what's happening. So I think I would definitely appreciate Attorney Myhost if you could bring that back to us and that question about how to balance those two rights. You know, with respect to the sort of broader situation, I think Ms. Coppola mentioned sort of the partnership and the void, or thinking about how that decision impacted us. I think if the superintendent's going to look at anything to do with what was happening previously, I think it's important for us to think broadly about if there's a need for student teachers to not presuppose how we would fill that need. Because we heard tonight we're working with Boston College. I know that the district is working to expand its partnerships with Salem State, particularly around the goals of hiring a diverse workforce. And so I think any sort of review of those options should be comprehensive.
Mr. Ford.
I'd just like to say, I voted against it. I voted to sever the ties. I was on a board with a young lady that worked at Gordon, and she was fired because they found out she was a lesbian. I think that's wrong. I think we have a commitment to the gay and lesbian members of our school community. I think we have to support them. I'm not going to change my vote.
I also I mentor kids, and one of the kids that I mentored went to Gordon, and he was a gay kid, gay man, and he graduated, and he had a great education there. But what you know, the students aren't the issue. It's the college and its principals, because there are good people that go to this school. They just happen to go to a school that has these certain core values. I do, you know, all I can think about is our recent vote just last month about the contraceptives, and how I wanted more transparency, because I felt as though parents, you know, when we sent the consent forms, we should say, hey, you might not know, but if your kids, you know, comes, they could get certain things. I think that there was a false narrative, or not necessarily a false narrative, but a clear misunderstanding of what took place 4 or 5 years ago on what that did. And obviously there's other laws that prevent the district from disallowing Gordon to come in and recruit students. So if you read that, it looks like they severed any and all ties with Gordon College, and that to me sounds like that's it. But what we're being told today is no. If someone solicits and they do that, then they get a pass in, because we can't say no.
Well, it's a public building. There's a statute on the books. You're allowing schools from various, well, some religious-oriented schools other than Gordon College are allowed to recruit students at the English and classical high schools. Where's the basis of your discrimination against Gordon College from coming into the school? I can see an affirmative vote, which was taken by the school committee 5 years ago, stating that sever all ties, and I concluded at that time that it was affirmative action on the part of the school committee soliciting Gordon College in to participate with the school department. That's the way I interpreted it, and I think that's the way that's
Like contracts?
That's correct.
Okay.
Allowing them to participate in any type of that was requested by the school committee or the administration.
Because they're severing something, so you
Right.
would. Yeah.
But they had programs in place that were
Yep.
uh, prevented from going forward as a result of the vote. What I'm saying is you have a location, you have schools going up to English and classical, Gordon College asking to bring their folders, whatever it be, from Boston University, Boston College, Providence College, Holy Cross, whatever, Salem State, UMass Amherst, UMass Boston, they're presenting their, whatever their kit is, whatever they're trying to solicit the students. How do you make a determination that Gordon College, as a result of the statute, specifically in the right of, in the language used about religious organizations, how do you prevent them from coming in and just having a table where they have their literature on it? They weren't invited in by the English high school. They weren't invited in by classical high school. All colleges were allowed that, the ability to come in, solicit students. Now, that was the basis of the thrust of my thought process on that. And I don't mean to say that the prior vote of the school committee done 5 years ago was illegal. I would have said that at that time. The vote is within the discretion of the school committee. It's up to the school committee to make a determination which way they want to go. If they want to ratify the vote, take no action, rescind it, et cetera, that's totally within your purview. I'm just saying the action of them coming in and putting a book down or whatever on the table, telling them about Gordon College, I have a problem with that.
But, sorry, I find it hard to agree with that. So if English is opening their doors, how is that not them inviting them in?
Because all, well, go ahead.
I think the distinction that, well, at least I was trying to make earlier relative to public comment was that the high schools, principals, guidance departments aren't contacting colleges to say, please come on these dates or please come, period.
There's just designated times and
The doors are open.
Yes.
Here are the dates and times.
Yeah.
Schedule accordingly. And whoever decides to come may come. That's how and that said, both schools are moving more toward getting students to actually go to the campuses rather than campuses coming or colleges coming and doing information sessions. But that's how they handle it. It's open. Here are the times. Here are the dates. Here are the processes. Anybody who wants to come may come.
And it's not like they're speaking or talk, like, there's no,
table
like,
set up.
There's a table set up.
Cafeteria.
If you're going to the table, then you can have your, okay.
I have,
Yes, Ms. Gately.
From what I recall, because I was a teacher at the time, and kudos to Felix for standing up and expressing himself, because you should express yourself. And I'm totally confused by the action of Gordon College back when they made this vote, because I literally work at St. Mary's part-time, and I literally was a supervisor from Gordon College for a student teacher. And she is openly gay. And it didn't bother them at Gordon College at all. And like all the student teachers that came from Gordon College in my classroom, was never anything discussed until that new president came in, and you will attest to that, correct? So the new president came in, and he made this blanket statement, and it was not correct. It was like so nasty to do that, to zoom out, to cut out people, when what I see actually happening is the opposite. Like the students are gay over at Gordon. Anyone that wants to be, it's a freedom act. They can do whatever they want to do. That is in their bylaws, but it has, I don't know, there are some times, like if you read through every single college's that has Christianity or Catholic or whatever, if you read them all, they all say that, but there's so many more gay people in those schools, and they just don't enforce them. They're just not saying that. Where I'm torn is, I would like Dr. Tutwiler to look into it because what I saw from those students, it wasn't discussed. People don't run around discussing. They're talking about a subject matter. They're talking about teaching. They're talking about educating students. And it's just like some great teachers are coming from that school that could benefit our students. And they are not against the hold on, I'm sorry, the LGBTQ community. I'm not. I totally get it, but I'm totally confused. So if you would, Dr. Tutwiler, research it, look into it. And Felix, thank you very much for opening up, because I hope this doesn't feel like a slap. It's not a slap. I just see a lot of benefits, and I see a lot of people that are in that college that are being held away from. And they are gay, and they are happy, and they are becoming teachers, and they are using that school. So I'm confused. So I want it looked into. Okey-doke?
Are you comfortable with that? Mr. Ford.
At one point, there were only two of us, Mrs. Capola and myself. We had the president come in.
Okay.
We tried to make a deal. We tried to get him to make some concessions. Personally, my opinion, he was extremely arrogant and basically said, my way or the highway, and that's why I voted the way I did. But, you know, to the members that weren't here, we actually tried to make a deal. And I think, well, you've spoken to him since, and he basically is sticking to his guns, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are you willing to do that?
Yeah, and let me be clear on what I understand to be the root of why this has come back. So I wasn't here when that decision was rendered. I came the fall thereafter and read about it, understood it. Since that decision in the spring of 2014, the district has not entered into any formal partnership with any other university with respect to, essentially the Lynn Public Schools being a training ground for prospective teachers, which there are massive benefits for students, first and foremost, but also the teachers who are supervising those teachers, working at the prospective teachers. The school, there's a reciprocal or mutual benefit for both the district and the university partner. I think I've spoken a number of times about whether it's in the diverse hiring initiative or other initiatives, the importance of having a university partner. That's what I think people are missing since that decision has been made. What I'm understanding, what I'm being tasked with is finding a university partner. And part of that work would involve speaking to Gordon to find out if there is a path forward in the Lynn Public Schools. And part of that is the values alignment. And maybe there's something, maybe something differently can be done. I don't know. But I think doing due diligence around turning every stone, having conversations, not just with Gordon. We've got a budding conversation happening with Salem State. Endicott has a strong teacher preparation program. What other North Shore institutions of higher learning that have strong teacher preparation programs might we consider a partnership so that we can regain what was lost when that decision was rendered? That's what I'm understanding my task to be. Okay. I also want to echo congratulations and my heartfelt thanks to Felix. It does take courage. Not many students come and speak on that microphone, take a night off on a Thursday night and come here and speak. So my hat is tipped to you, my friend.
And there's no hurry. I mean, just whatever it takes, whatever amount of time. Okay? Attorney Nicholson?
Yeah, so what is it? What's the next step? Because I feel like there were two issues raised tonight under this topic.
It was.
One is to relook at what was voted on, and one is to see if they can come into the schools, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to be clear what the other, what the next steps were on the other issue, yeah.
Can I just be clear? I don't see my task as revisiting what was voted on. I see my task as finding a university partner for the Lynn Public Schools. Those are two different
Yeah,
things.
I agree. I mean, I think I made the point before. If we're going to be looking for a student-teacher partner, I don't think there's any reason to presuppose who that would be. But so you're going to be looking for a university partner for student teachers. That's what the task is.
At a high level.
Okay.
And it's going to be, you're including Gordon as a potential, is what you said.
We'll look at all North Shore colleges.
And then, Attorney Myhouse, I guess you've already made the determination that they're allowed in our schools because of that law, correct?
Because of that statute.
Okay.
Okay, superintendent's evaluation.
Do you want to?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the culmination, I think, of a almost a year-long process to do this. This was given to us at the last meeting, this document, so we've all had time to read it. I would imagine that we would proceed tonight by doing whatever we need to do to, I guess, let anybody have questions, ask them, and anybody that has suggested changes or whatever to change them. This is the compilation, obviously, of what all the members have done. If people are in agreement, I imagine what the next steps would be for us to adopt it and then do whatever we need to do to read it into the record, so that we're complying with the open meeting laws. But I read it. I thought I wanted to tell my colleagues that I really appreciated their thoughts and feedback. I enjoyed reading the document, and I think that it's something that Dr. Tutwiler should be proud of in terms of what we said about him, and also that I think we can be proud of as a district that we went through this process and we had a good result. So,
Question? Is there a reason why it says the mayor's name up here? Is it? I just want to make sure that this is the compiled one.
Off on it once it's voted in.
Okay. And then the content of it is the average of.
Correct.
Dr. Tutwiler, last time we spoke, I know that you weren't able to digest and review it because we got it all the same day. Is there anything you want to?
That I want to say? Yeah. So I think it was one of the first memos that I sent to the entire staff, and I talked about a personal core value of mine or belief that feedback-rich organizations tend to be the most successful, and I'm not above feedback. I mean, that's how I get better in my role. I ask for it all the time from principals, from senior leadership team, and they give it. I think I become a better educator, a better person by responding to it. So I'll say that first. And then I'll say with respect to, I mean, where the most meat is in the evaluation is in the comments. So you know how most, like a college student or even a high school student, they're just going to turn to the grade, and then once they see that, they're done. I look at the grade, obviously, or the level. But the most valuable feedback is in the comments, and I feel encouraged from the standpoint, and thank you for the parts of it that were complimentary, but I'm grateful because I feel like the areas where members said they'd like to see improvement align really well with the strategic plan and the work that we're doing this year. And so I will be really attentive to, and I hope that you see this as we go forward, response to things that you've written in here, in presentations and report outs, then just in general what you're hearing out and about in the community. And maybe not all of it will reflect what you would like to see improvement on, but I am taking the feedback seriously.
Can I just ask Attorney Myhouse, are we to read these, or how is it just?
Well, the evaluation.
I mean, it's a good evaluation, so there's no embarrassment to not read. And, you know, most of your things were proficient and with, you know, significant progress on many areas. So I just don't know, from past, we've had to read each thing. So I'm asking.
That's within the discretion of the school committee to make a determination. The evaluation of the superintendent by law, by statute and by court rulings, has to be an open meeting. We either can go through the evaluations and read them all, as you've done in the past, or on the alternative, you can make them available for the public.
Yes,
Can I make a
Superintendent.
recommendation?
Yeah.
Mayor McGee read the ratings for each of the standards and the ratings with respect to the goals. Obviously did not read, I mean, there's probably 9 or so pages of narrative feedback. Once this is, I assume they'll have to vote on it and signed, I'll post it on the website, and we'll post a link on Facebook that says this is available for people to go and read.
Okay, is that agreeable to everybody at the table? Okay,
So,
do we have a
just to make
motion to
sure-
accept?
Just to make sure, we're just going to read this report, not the comments. Is that what we're saying?
But the comments are going to be posted online.
The whole kit and
Whole
caboodle.
thing's gonna be posted.
So this will be read in, just briefly, correct?
The mayor read that in the last meeting.
Okay.
He went through the entire document and each of the ratings.
So we're just going to reaffirm what he said?
Make a motion
I think we
just
just
to
need a
accept
to
it,
vote it.
and then
Okay.
he will post it.
We don't have to read it.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the superintendent evaluation.
Second.
Any discussion?
Do we also need to vote for him to sign it?
You can amend my motion.
Okay.
I make a motion to accept the superintendent's evaluation and to request the Honorable Mayor Thomas M. McGee to to apply his signature.
Second.
I lost that.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Cassianis?
Yes.
Ms. Capola?
Yes.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Ms. Gately?
Yes.
Mr. Nicholson?
Yes.
Mr. Satterwhite?
Yes.
Mayor McGee's absent.
Okay, ratification of votes taken in the curriculum subcommittee, dual language program.
There was no vote taken. It was just like a presentation.
Okay, ratifications of votes taken in the personnel subcommittee, job posting. There were no votes taken. Request for executive session to discuss strategies with respect to collective bargaining relative to local 42 Teamsters, the monitors' contracts.
Make a motion to go into executive session.
Do we want to
Oh, sorry.
up the
Oh,
Okay, does somebody want to make a motion?
motion
then
to take out of order to move the items G and H under Section 8 new business to the end of the meeting?
I won't have that.
Second?
Second.
You got it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
you have to roll call on
Mr. Cassianis?
Yes.
Roll call?
To take out of order, no, just voice vote.
that? Okay.
All good.
Voice
Voice
vote.
vote. Okay,
Yes.
Yes. Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
okay, superintendent, we're ready.
So it's been about a month since our last meeting. This report is somewhat lengthy, so I might skip some parts, but you'll get the gist.
Oh, okay.
And as I start by saying, it's been precisely 1 month since our last convening, and many good things have happened in the intervening time. I'm thrilled to share that information, but first, we need to tend to some important updates. Carolyn Troy, the Executive Director of Social Emotional Learning, will be putting together a committee to review the SEL resources for grades 6 to 12. Our goal is to incorporate multiple perspectives. Accordingly, the committee will represent various roles, including Assistant Director of SEL, Principal, School Adjustment Counselor, Social Worker, and so forth. The goal is for the committee to meet in January through March with recommendation of a framework to be brought to the school committee by spring 2020. A similar process featuring a parallel commitment to diverse perspective will be devoted to the process for a grade 8 civics textbook adoption. By way of reminder, once a set of resources has been identified, there'll be a presentation and a curriculum subcommittee meeting so we can achieve precisely what it is I think Member Gately was asking for earlier this evening. On November 26th, Governor Baker signed the Landmark Student Opportunity Act. On a high level, this act corrects a decades-long funding shortcomings for school districts like ours in profound ways. We don't yet know specifically what the increase in state funding will be, but it will be substantive. Shortly after this momentous day, information was released with respect to some related requirements. At this point, there's neither guidance nor a high level of detail. Below are 4 pieces of the requirements that DESE has released. These are things that upon which we are already aligned in many ways. I suspect there'll be additional guidance from the reporting in short order. As a matter of fact, I was on a conference call this afternoon with the Urban Superintendents Network meeting planners, and we're planning to get some more information about that, so I'll report out on that. The Joint Committee on Education has provided a 3-page summary that offers some insight, and I attached that for you. There's specific language in the summary that we intend to act on right away. Case in point, the following will be a requirement. School districts, in collaboration with parents and community stakeholders, must develop and make publicly available plans for closing opportunity gaps. These plans will include specific goals and metrics and track success. Toward the end of collaboration with parents and community stakeholders, and I think reflective of feedback that I got in my evaluation, I've directed all building principals to schedule and post at a school site council meeting at which they will discuss their FY21 budget plans and solicit input from council members. These meetings must happen on or before Friday, February 14th, and I've asked all the principals to submit minutes from that meeting as well for our information. What is more, I'm planning on holding 2 public budget forums at which attendees will be provided the framework of our strategic plan and related budget priorities, which have not yet been developed. I will also solicit input from those who attend. The dates of the forums are to be determined. We're proceeding with this plan because it reflects our core values of collaborative relationships and shared responsibilities, first and foremost, but also because we are genuinely interested in the perspectives and input from the broader community. We have an exciting update with respect to this year's first round of assessments for the Seal of Biliteracy. Ryan, you spoke to this earlier, or alluded to it. In October, the English Learner Education Department began assessments for the world language component of the Seal of Biliteracy. So far, we've tested 4 languages of the 15 requested, including Spanish, Arabic, Korean, and French. We're proud to share that thus far, a total of 114 students, 67% of those who have participated, have met the criteria to earn the Seal of Biliteracy. Awesome. Of that 114, 39 students have met the assessment criteria for the Seal of Distinction. During last year's initial implementation of this program, 79 students were awarded the Seal of Biliteracy and 5 met the Seal of Distinction. So big jump this year. Beginning in February, the English Learner Education Office will assess approximately 75 more students in the remaining languages, and will also test 134 interested juniors this spring. Related to this work, I'd like to celebrate Stacy Floyd, who is not here this evening, from the English Learner Education Department, who's been working with schools, students, and families in the assessment and communication of the Seal of Biliteracy. I'd also like to note that this work is not going unnoticed in the state. The English Learner Education Department is being recognized by DESE by participating in a panel at the next English Learner Directors meeting in February, as well as MATSAL, which stands for Massachusetts Association for Teachers of Speakers of Other Languages, in May for the work being done in Lynn with the Seal of Biliteracy, as well as the efficient and effective use of grant funds for developing the bilingual education in the district. The work exemplifies the district's core values of inspiring lifelong learning and inclusiveness by celebrating and valuing the linguistic assets of our school community. Attached to this document is a formal notice of congratulations from the Office of the Governor of Massachusetts. Our application was approved to receive grant funds in the amount of $123,000 and $123,826 to support our diverse hiring initiative. We will use these funds to support paraprofessionals and teachers on a waiver in a new pathway program, offer an MTEL preparation course for teachers, and build out a high school pathway to teaching program. This was a collaborative effort that ended with success that will yield in measurable results. I'll keep you posted about the development of these programs, but right now we are celebrating. Finally, on the topic of celebration, Talia Dudley, a Lynn English senior, received awesome news. She was one of 1,100 students across the nation to receive the QuestBridge National Match Scholarship, a very competitive award. QuestBridge partners with 40 elite colleges and universities across the nation, and Talia was one of 15 students to be matched with Tufts University. Talia's $76,000 to go to Tufts a year. Woo. Annual cost of attendance will be covered for all 4 years. Congratulations to Talia and the teachers who have educated and supported her along the way. That is all, and while I have your attention, I wish you all a wonderful holiday season with your families.
Thank you.
You too, Patrick.
Make a motion
Now, okay.
for executive session to discuss strategies with respect to the collective bargaining relative to local 42 Teamsters monitors contract.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Cassianis?
Yes.
Ms. Capola?
Yes.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Ms. Gately?
Yes.
Mr. Nicholson?
Yes.
Mr. Satterwhite?
Yes.
Mayor McGee absent.
When the reporter leaves for us, there's no news.
Billy coming in. Living off peanuts, guy.
I think I have it. I got it.
You want to make a motion to return to open session?
Motion to return to open session?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve the votes taken in the executive session with regards to the collective bargaining relative to Local 42 Teamsters, the monitor's contract.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, roll call, please.
Mr. Cassianis?
Yes.
Ms. Capola?
Yes.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Ms. Gately?
Yes.
Mr. Nicholson?
Yes.
Mr. Satterwhite?
Yes.
Mayor McGee absent.
Okay, I will be sending down 5 contracts to be signed.
And the superintendent will add the third page on that evaluation.
Say it again?
He'll add the third page that's missing on the evaluation.
One you had, yeah.
So they're signing the contract, right? Right.
Why am I up here this time? It's like, I'm so confused.
Why am I last?
I know. Is this, I don't know why. It's not in the right order.
What isn't?
The names. I'm so confused.
Nice.
I know, where are you?
I'm third. I'm moving on up.
Order of the names on the
Moving
sheet.
on up.
The order of the names on the sheet.
Mike, you're messing him up.
If anything, I'm the chair of negotiations. I should be first, not Brian Castellanos.
I didn't even think about it like that, but what's up?
But the 3 negotiators are the top, below Tom.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to
Second.
adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Well, I don't want to go.